It's such a pleasure to be joining you right here on the India Development Debate. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and straight on to the big topic of discussion. A day after the Congress announced its ambitious minimum income guarantee scheme, and Finance Minister Arun Jaitley called it a bluff announcement, political controversy has peaked over this. Rahul Gandhi has called this the surgical strike on poverty, and Priyanka Gandhi said that the scheme will empower women even more. UP Chief Minister Adityanath called the announcement a gimmick. BJP President Amit Shah reminded a crowd in Moradabad that the biggest issue of the election is that the country should be safe, completely sidestepping the minimum income guarantee scheme. Questions are also being raised about how will this be funded? Is this really the final assault on poverty? But even as politics around the minimum income guarantee scheme peak, it's time to put the spotlight to where it really belongs, and which is why we've chosen to discuss this for a second day in a row right here on ET Now. I have an expert panel with me. I've got Yogi founder and national president, Swaraj India. Representing the Congress is Salman Soz, and representing the BJP, it's Syed Zafar Islam. So thank you very much. We've decided to keep it tight with just 3 voices. My only request is let's try and do a civil debate on this. Let's not try and interrupt each other. Keep your answers brief so that we can cover a lot of ground. But let's begin with you, Yogendra Yadav. And I'm a little inspired by what you tweeted, but I'm going to still repeat it for the benefit of our viewers. Has minimum income guarantee promise brought the election back to basics, back to the mudda of poverty, back to the mudda of jobs? And will it change the election narrative from here on? And also, one of the questions that lurks is, will that change stay? Or will 2019 be fought on nationalism versus populism / income guarantee?
In all fairness, we don't know, Supriya, as of today. All we know is that for the last 2 days, we have been discussing what this country ought to have been discussing during elections. We are not counting how many terrorists were killed in Balakot. Instead, we are counting how many poor in this country are, how much resources do we have in budget, how can those resources be used for the poor. This is what we should be debating. So that, to my mind, is one significant contribution. I don't think Congress really knows what it's offering. What they said yesterday is different from what they are saying now. What their spokespersons say on different shows, and I've been to 2, are actually very different versions. And if this scheme was thought through for 4 months, we haven't quite seen evidence of thinking through so far. Maybe they'll change. In all fairness, the BJP talked about doubling of farmers' income 3 years ago, and even today they don't know what that means. So maybe they should be given 48 hours to think through what they are saying. To my mind, there are some valid questions and there are some irrelevant questions. The questions that we should not be putting too much of our time on are questions like, are the poor going to get lazy? No, sir. With 6,000 rupees, people don't stop wanting to have better life. Whether this is an electoral promise, of course it's an electoral promise. What else do you expect? Whether India can afford it, well, if India can afford 7th pay commission for the government employees, which costs 1 lakh crore rupees a year, maybe India can afford 3.5 lakh crore rupees for people who are more than 50% of this country. I mean, these are not serious issues. The serious issues are about design. Is it a top-up scheme? Is it a scheme which is a flat rate payment? Congress is unable to make up its mind for the last 24 hours on that, and it's a significant question. It's not a trivial question. Second, whether it would supplement the existing schemes or it would replace. Today the Congress has clarified and says, no, we won't replace anything, it would supplement, in which case that's a positive signal. But the third and the big question about where the money would come from. This is roughly 3.5 lakh crore rupees. That's not impossible, but it's a substantial amount. Our budget, I think this year was about 27 lakh crore rupees. Next year, it will go up to about 29 lakh crore or 30 lakh crore or something like that kind. Which is to say, the entire addition of 1 year will be taken care by this particular scheme. Now, where would it not involve raising resources? Congress has been fudging this issue. To my mind, the honest answer is yes, it will require more resources. It will require more taxation. That's an honest answer.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's an honest answer, and that's a question that I have covered. So just give me some time, because I am going to touch upon specific points that you raised. Let me first go across to Syed Zafar Islam before I go and seek answers from Salman Soz. And Zafar, does it put BJP in a bind? You can call it bluff, you can call it bogus, you can call it gimmicky, but there is only one question that you are being asked. Are you for it, or are you against it? Because if the party president's Moradabad speech is anything to go by, he very conveniently skipped criticizing or even talking about the minimum income guarantee scheme. He actually went on to say that the biggest issue in elections this year is that the country should be safe. Are you on the back foot because of the Congress announcement? And answer one question. Are you for it, or are you against it?
See, as far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, we are not at all in back foot. On the contrary, we know that what we have done for the poor, and it is for the Congress Party to really realize that what the hollow or the false promises they have made in the past, and they are again making, because something they themselves are not clear. In fact, on various channels, their own spokesperson and the senior leaders were there. They do not have the clarity whether it will be over and above what the subsidy which is being paid, 1,17,000 already, whether it will be over and above that, which is like 5,43,000 crore already earmarked out of the budget outlay, whether this is a part of the subsidy, something which they do not have the clarity. The scheme has not been designed, not been thought through. They have just made the statement only for the sake of making a statement. They know for very well that they do not have money. If they say it is over and above, because some of the spokesperson have said that it is over and above, then my question is, it is 2% of GDP or 1.9% of GDP. Then it is, my question is 13% of the budget outlay. Then my question is, it is 68% of the income tax received, 58% of the corporate tax received. From where the money will come?
Zafar,
my money will come.
No, that's a legitimate question you ask. Where will the money come from? And that's also a question I have to ask. Please listen to me. You ask a legitimate question on resources. Answer in yes or no to my next question. Are you for the scheme? Are you against the scheme? Just yes or no, because I am going to talk about the fiscal implications in just a bit. Yes or no? Are you for minimum income guarantee, or are you against it?
Supriya, see, Bharatiya Janata Party had evaluated, it is a, for Congress, it's a borrowed idea. It's an idea they have borrowed from us. It is the chief economic advisor. If you just see the economic survey,
so
it has been mentioned that something of this sort should be introduced. But
so you support it?
It is all. So we are always for. No, we are. We always want to empower.
I get my answer. Syed Zafar Islam.
But. Supriya,
Zafar, I get my answer. Please give me a minute. No. Wait now. Please wait. Okay, wait for a minute. I'm going to Salman Soz. Please wait. Salman, this is the biggest social protection scheme attempted anywhere in the world. No denying that. Zafar is right. It was first talked about in the economic survey by Arvind Subramanian. It is not a the economic survey is not a political exercise. It's an independent evaluation of the economy. Zafar, I will remind you on that. But 6,000 per month to bottom 20% of poor families in India. Do we have the resources, and where will the resources come from? I asked a blunt question to Zafar, yes or no. I got the answer yes. I'm asking you a blunt question. Is it fair to presume that part of this will be financed by higher taxes? And is it a given that one must brace up for a tax on wealth, on inheritance, and perhaps business turnover? Is higher taxes going to the way you'll fund this? And be candid now.
I'll be very candid. You talked about social protection, this being a very big social protection scheme. In fact, an Asian Development Bank report from 2016 indicates that on social protection, India ranks 24th out of 35 countries in Asia. We're below countries like even Pakistan. As far as social protection spending is concerned, we're already spending very little money on social protection. When Zafar Bhai gets very excited about where's the money going to come from for poor people, they never get this excited when we are talking about 3,50,000 crores of bad debts that were written off by this government in the last 4 years. We never hear about that. The fact that, when you talk about write-offs and how much of that money has been recovered, not 100%, not 90%, not 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20%, not even 15% has been recovered by this government. They never get so excited about that. But when it comes to poor people, oh, where's the money coming from? These are the kinds of questions that were asked when Manrega came up. These are the questions that were asked in 2003 and 2004 when the Congress party promised that Manrega would be implemented. In the budget speeches of Mr. Chidambaram, who was the finance minister at that time, in 2005, I'm giving you some basis for an answer.
Yeah.
2005, 2006 budget speech, if you read that, if you read what happened, he said that we're going to launch it in a pilot phase. They did. 200 districts first, then another 120 districts, and that is what we plan to do with this scheme. We're going to launch it in phases, learn about what kinks there are, iron them out. We're not like the BJP trying to ram through a Kisan Yojana and give 2,000 rupees to the farmers, get some votes. We want a sensible...
Okay, Salman.
Well, I will tell you, on taxes, I will be very clear on taxes.
No, Salman, yes or no? Will this mean higher taxes?
Yes. I'm trying to respond to your question. The middle class people who have suffered enormously under this government, this government's tax terrorism, middle class India will not face any new taxes. In fact, the tax liabilities, I think, are going to come down. The GST, which affects everybody, that is going to be simplified and the rates are going to be lowered. So the tax burden on this country is going to be lower, not higher. We will have plenty of money for this kind of a scheme because this scheme is needed.
Okay.
The important question to you, Supriya, and to those watching this television show is, can we afford not to lift these people up? These weak and voiceless people who need help, who can have a dignified life, and who can, if we cover their basics, they can go for...
And nobody can quarrel with that. And nobody quarrels with you on that at all, Salman Soz. Nobody should have an issue with that. Nobody quarrels with that. But very quickly, Zafar Islam, I'll come to you, take a question to the Congress and go back to you again, Yadav, for a more bipartisan view on this. And to you, Zafar, your finance minister may say that this government has already transferred 5.34 lakh crore rupees, a number that you quoted. It is much higher than the 3.6 lakh crore that minimum income guarantee scheme promises. The reality is not so simple math between 72,000 and 5 crore. You know, it's the differential that has to be paid, could be a lot lower. But if this is true and the implantation is successful, why does poverty continue to exist? Modi's government, promised 6,000 per year for farmers. Does that pale in comparison to 72,000? And is that why the BJP is out to rubbish the scheme? It's as simple as that. Does 6,000 pale in comparison to just one section of farmers versus 72,000, which is minimum wages?
See, the 6,000 rupees which has been given to the farmers, it impacts, to that extent, it impacts the fiscal deficit, and the number is known to you. How much it will impact our deficit number. But the fiscal math is something we'll go for a toss. If you distribute 72,000 over and above the subsidy which is being given. Today, if it is 2% or 58% of fiscal deficit number what we have today, means the fiscal deficit from 3.4%, it will go to 5.5%. Do we have that kind of capacity? If at all, we will have to raise from the market. The borrowing will go up. The cost of interest cost will go up. And today, if you just see the budget outlay, how much committed cost is there, which is already the committed cost, so which is almost 55%. And how much it goes for servicing those outstanding debt which has been taken during UPA time. Now 45% is the only amount which is left for government to maneuver. My question is, if they have, if the Congress has this number, then fiscal deficit will definitely go for a toss. The rating which we have got, upgrade, definitely will be downgraded. The growth what we are showing will definitely come off. It will be disastrous if you do not have additional revenue. Somebody I heard Salman Khurshid was saying that they will reduce the revenue expenditure. How much headroom available for us, for a country like us?
One second. Zafar, I like your concern around the fiscal position of India. Zafar, Okay, I get that. Let's not confuse the debate with jargon here. This is not an economic debate. This is a political debate that we're doing on a very important topic. Let's not bring in jargon here. But I like your concern around India's fiscal position. I'm going to go across to Yogendra Yadav. Give me a minute. Mr. Yadav, after Manrega, which democratized work and wage labor for poor there, this scheme seems to be the big political idea. But can that capture imagination of the people? And is this, do you believe, a logical extension of what the MNREGA is? Also, will the success of this depend on it subsuming existing schemes? Because the Congress seems to say that the existing schemes will also continue. Can top-ups like these, are top-ups like these tenable without waning off what exists right now? Mr. Yadav.
Look, Supriya, this is a big idea. It's one of the biggest ideas floated in any election, and certainly the biggest idea floated in this election. It is clearly underworked, underthought, not fully thought through, as is quite evident. In all fairness, in our culture, we simply don't have the culture of public scrutiny of electoral promises, and I'm very, very happy that this time someone is scrutinizing the promise that an opposition party makes. Remember how many of us ever scrutinized the promise made by Mr. Modi in 2014? 2 crore jobs, 15 lakh rupees in bank accounts. And no one dared ask him questions. So for the first time, some big electoral promise is being put to serious test. This is one step forward for our democracy. In all fairness, I personally am not yet convinced by what the Congress spokesperson is saying, that we would be able to have this much spending and reduce the tax. This requires a magic which I don't fully understand. But let's also remember that for the big declarations that were made by the BJP, even when they are in government, no one dare ask them for account of those things. Doubling of farmers' income. Where is the roadmap? Not even on paper, even today. How much have they achieved in the first 3 years? No one even asks such uncivil questions to the BJP. So we are asking those questions to opposition. That's nice. I hope when the BJP comes up with this manifesto, I can tell you they would promise things which would cost even more than this. And then suddenly we would not have enough time on television debates to ask them questions. Having said this, what would be the political impact of this? It depends on how it is presented to the public. My own sense is that Congress's record in communication to the ordinary people has been very poor. The Prime Minister has been able to sell things which don't even exist, but he's such a great salesperson, he can sell it. He was able to sell even demonetization. I dread to think any other country in the world where someone did something as crazy as that, the regime would have not survived 10 days. Congress, on the other hand, does not know how to sell something which is on its own shelf. So we have to see how it is communicated, how it is taken to the public, how it is simplified, and how much energy Congress puts behind this. It all depends on that.
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely it does. But I also want to touch upon another important point, and you had touched upon this in your answer previously, and I think it's a very elite way of looking at things. I completely agree with you when we say, will this make the poor, lazy? People don't know poverty when they say things like that. But I will still ask a question of the Congress party, because this was said on the debate yesterday and it's kind of stuck with me. Salman, unlike Manrega, does this take respect out of labor, and does this disincentivize work? And not because we think that the poor will become lazy. It's a stupid person who thinks like that and says and writes those things. But, is there also a tacit admission on the part of our political class that growth will not be enough to lift these people out of poverty? Job creation is going to be tough in the environment that we live in, and which is why these checks will have to be written off. But do we run the risk of telling a section of our population that you are useless to society, you will be taken care of despite anything else?
Look, I think we have a culture in this country of actually having taken care of the richest people in the country. I think that must change. We must really ask questions of our governments when such things happen, and unfortunately that doesn't happen often enough because those who are wealthy, who are powerful, have a voice. And then, the kind of doles that they're on, we never question that. Here, we are talking about bringing dignity to the lives of people so they stand and when their basic needs are covered, they go out and they look for more meaningful opportunities. Don't think for a moment, Supriya, that people like us who are sitting here, we talk about these issues. We're not about to give up our work because, we may be well off and we may have enough money and we could even possibly retire, but we want to work. We want to have a sense of purpose. The poor people have that sense of purpose. They will, I can guarantee you, I've not really seen a lot of research on how cash transfers disincentivize work. I don't think that's the way it works. What happens typically is that your basics are covered and you feel empowered to go and do other things so that you actually provide for a better life for your family. So I don't think this is going to actually make people want to work less or make other people say, oh, by the way, this person is going to get money and I'm not getting this money, so I'm not going to do this. So I think those fears are unfounded. I think those kinds of objections, frankly, are not worth consideration.
Fair point.
I do want to talk about what Mr. Yadav said about how do you actually reduce the how does this not impact the deficit if you're not going to raise taxes? Let me explain. Whenever we look at the fiscal deficit, we don't look at absolute numbers. That's not the way to look at the fiscal deficit. You have to look at, you can't just look at revenue minus expenditure. You have to look at the ratio, and the ratio is the GDP, which is the denominator. If you grow this, and remember, when you provide money to poor people, they're going to be spending it. They're not typically saving it because they need to, get their minimum needs met.
Yes, absolutely.
So they'll spend it. That's going to act as a boost to the economy. That's number one. So I think, So I think we should not worry so much about the fiscal deficit.
No,
and by the way,
you talk about an important point.
Over time.
Right. No, you are right. You talk about an important thing, that there is going to be a virtuous cycle of consumption which is going to drive investment, which will be put into motion. There is no denying that. You speak about an important point there, consumption driving investment and the pie kind of growing. But Zafar, do you not agree that the good thing with a scheme like this is that it doesn't have to stay in perpetuity? I mean, poverty is dynamic. People who are poor today, if they get the support, will come out of poverty. And besides, a basic income also helps these people to skill themselves, to have better avenues to work, to look at higher earning capacities, which in any case is going to expand the pie. I mean, that is the whole idea of a scheme like this. So I'm presuming a scheme like this doesn't need to exist in perpetuity. Zafar.
Well, income should not be given as a dole. It is coming like an entitlement. It does not empower people. First of all, the poor remains poor. They always wait for this entitlement. They will get as a dole. But what we have always advocated, that it should be productively used. Money which is being given should be given like we have modified Manrega. Earlier Manrega was given as a dole. Now we have come up with a scheme, modified Manrega, where we are creating employment. And physical infrastructure is being created in the village, and everybody is being paid for the work they do. Similarly, whatever money is being given to the poor section of the society, I think that should not come as a dole. That should be given as a employment, and as a that money will be non-inflationary also. If you just give as a dole, it will be inflationary.
There are two
the inflation will again rise to 10%.
Zafar, both Yogendra Yadav, I mean, what are you talking about? Do you believe inflation is more important, or is it more important to pull people out of poverty? What are you talking about, Zafar? I mean, hear yourself. I don't just see Yogendra Yadav and Salman Soz nod in disagreement. I, for a change, am also nodding in disagreement. Inflation, really, we're talking about poor people in this country. One last question to Yogendra Yadav. I'm completely out of time, but I have to quickly take this question. Mr. Yadav, don't you agree that for Nyay to really work as a poverty eradication program, the government has to certainly universalize education and health? And for that, we will need more resources, because without kind of democratizing and universalizing that, Nyay is just going to achieve very limited purpose. Is that a given as well?
Absolutely. any one scheme like this is not going to eradicate poverty. In any case, this may not be the most efficient design of addressing poverty issues. Many economists have very seriously argued that what you need are minimum basic services to be delivered. The problem in our country is that we cannot depend on these services, therefore we go for a shortcut of cash transfers. But yes, what we need is a recognition, number one, that poor matter, that they should be top priority. In a country like us, last person first should be the basic principle. Having acknowledged it, what is the best way of serving the last person? By providing them better infrastructural facilities, better education, better health, better capabilities. Cash transfer can only be a small supplement, maybe a necessary supplement, maybe better than some of the other inefficient schemes. But a supplement, it is not a solution to the poverty issue. Poverty is eliminated by changing the structure of economy, not merely by transferring some money. Having said it, I think it's a very important idea. Now that it has come, Mr. Jafar Islam should also go back to his party and check whether the party is for or against, because in the course of the program he's changed his position twice. Once we have a national consensus that we agree with the principle underlying this scheme, other details we can keep working out, but thank God we are discussing something real, something substantive in this election. And thanks for conducting this debate.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you very much for that compliment, and a compliment from you really does matter. But yes, on that note, I'm completely out of time here. Can't thank this wonderful panel for a spirited discussion, for not getting into each other's ways and for letting each other speak completely. Thank you very, very much, Syed Zafar Islam, Salman Anisoz, and of course, Yogendra Yadav for being on this leg of the India development debate. It's important not just that we discuss these issues, but it's important that we discuss only these issues in a run-up to elections 2019, because these are issues that matter. Issues about education, issues about health, issues about eradication of poverty. What doesn't matter is hyper-nationalism. What doesn't matter is who's name-calling. What doesn't matter is who's, switching ships and joining each other. What matters is issues of everyday life. Why should pollution not be a part of our political narrative? Why should this issue not be discussed and discovered? These are the issues that matter, and we promise to put the highlight on them every evening in a run-up to elections. But thank you very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. As a parting note, I will only say that I have seen two sides.